Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part two, tripod shaking. This is part two of a Q&A that I'm doing because it helps me, it helps you, kind of lightens my workload for making these videos and answers some of your questions. Like I mentioned in the other video, if your question was very personal advice, therapeutic in nature, that's probably why I didn't answer it, because it wouldn't be ethical for me to do that. With that being said, let's keep going with the questions. How tall are you? I'm 5'6". What eyeliner do you use for your iconic cat eye look? Oh, I feel bad that I'm not wearing it right now. I think I use usually Wet n Wild or just a regular Sephora liquid liner. Can you do a makeup tutorial? I don't know. I did film one and I didn't like the way it turned out, and I'm still on the fence about whether that has a place on this channel. So maybe, I don't know yet. I was wondering what your boyfriend is getting his master's degree in, marketing. Handling or coping with rejection. Is it possible to avoid rejection? No, it's not possible. I mean, I guess romantically you could avoid all possible triggers, but you're gonna be rejected at some point, even if it's just, classmate that doesn't like you. So it's something that you have to cope with for sure. I think you just have to be okay with the idea that not everyone's gonna like you, which is definitely easier said than done, especially I think for people who have that core belief that they are unlikable or unlovable. That's a very common core belief for people, and I think it takes therapy, honestly. Are there any ways to get free therapy even if you don't think you have anything to diagnose? There are ways to get therapy that are covered by insurance completely. Those might be, community mental health centers if you have Medicaid, but you still need a diagnosis for that, even like just adjustment disorder of some kind. There are probably places that don't go by insurance that are community mental health centers that you don't really require much for. However, it's a question of, are you taking a spot from someone who really needs it, who does have a serious diagnosis? So I would really just look at what's in your region, what's available. What's your opinion on meditation to help release feelings of anxiety? I have never really loved meditation, I'll be honest. I feel like kind of an odd one out in this field not enjoying meditation, but lately I've become a little bit more into just like lying on the cold floor, listening to music and clearing my head, which I guess is kind of like meditation. So I guess I'm warming up to it a little bit. For me, it's definitely for the purposes of releasing anxiety. So I think it could be very useful. I just don't think it's for everyone necessarily. What are the pros and cons of working as an AP? I don't know what an AP is. Would you mind commenting down below what you meant by that? Hi Anna, how do you find balancing a full-time doctoral program, a YouTube channel, and living with your partner? Also, are you Latina? I noticed you're bilingual. No, I'm not Latina. I do speak Spanish, but I'm Romanian. How do I balance it? Very hard. Yeah, it's not easy. I just keep telling myself about when I can finally relax, try to sprinkle in some fun things every week, but how do I balance it? Not very well. Hi, I'm a first year in college in psychology, and until now I don't have any idea what field in psychology I'm gonna take. Do you have any advice on that? I don't. Not just because I'm bad at the different subfields of psychology, like I don't fully understand what other fields that are not clinical psychology do, but also I would say, not to discourage you from psychology, but you kind of have to know what you want to get out of it, because if you don't, you could get roped into something that either doesn't have much of a meaning on the job market, like an undergrad psychology degree, or you get into a field that's very difficult that you don't particularly enjoy. So I would really examine what it is you want to do and then pick your major or psychology field based on that. Which of the 4 attachment styles, in your opinion, is the most destructive to a seemingly secure relationship? I feel like there's no unbiased way to answer this because everyone has an attachment style. Since I tend to be more anxious attachment style, I feel like avoidant attachment style can be destructive, but I can definitely see how both can be destructive. I don't even know if I would be considered to have an anxious attachment style anymore. I feel like I've gotten pretty secure, but I'm just not sure if you can ever fully turn off that switch, since it is something so primal that we learn so early on. So to answer your question, I don't think there is any neutral answer to that question. I would like a video on what platonic, healthy male and female friendships look like. That's a really good idea. Noted. What other career paths, majors, or subjects have you ever considered or have an interest in? Other than psychology, writing, and I think you've mentioned sociology and anthropology, but I don't trust my memory. Well, your memory is very good because those are all the fields that I considered. Yeah, I went into college not knowing if I was going to major in sociology, anthropology, or psychology, not fully understanding what the differences were. I ended up majoring in cultural anthropology. I mean, it's not technically cultural, it's just anthropology, but I definitely just honed in on the cultural part. I still write. I've written books. I still think of writing as like my one love in life. I love it more than psychology, if I'm being honest. But you mentioned all of the fields that I pretty much considered going into. Any advice for 20-year-olds? It's so dependent on the type of 20-year-old. I guess like the same advice I kind of gave to myself, let yourself feel pain in the moment and then move past it, find solutions. Don't feel overwhelmed. I get that there's a lot that you don't know yet, but everyone's kind of in the same boat. And once you actually get practice with whatever it is that you feel overwhelmed by, it will come more naturally and you'll think back on it and think, why was I ever anxious in the first place? Hi Anna, I think about death and mortality all the time. Is there anything in psychology that talks about being okay with our mortality as humans? Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very universal thing, to be afraid of your own death and your own mortality, absolutely. I guess I can make a video on it at some point. I don't know how soon that will be, but just know that it's perfectly natural. Fearing death is as natural as death itself, but that is, I guess, what we have to remember is that it's inevitable and we all go through it, so there's no point in worrying about it. How do you deal with stress as a student? What's your self-care routine? Like I said, I try to sprinkle in a bunch of different fun things to look forward to every week. In terms of self-care, I do, the typical physical stuff like exercise, take a bath, candles, face masks. I also do a lot of emotional self-care, like I said, writing in my mental health journal, spending time with loved ones, doing things that I like, and intellectual self-care as well, doing the things that you need to do. Could you talk about Bowenian therapy? I love Bowenian therapy actually, even though I'm not too into psychodynamic forms of therapy. I really like the systems part of Bowenian therapy, so maybe at some point I'll discuss it. How does one stop gaslighting themselves? Well, I would recommend you just identify it as gaslighting when you notice it's what you're doing, and also, take notes, write things down if you need to, if you feel like you're questioning yourself, so that you actually have it written down. Previous me said this is true, so I'm going to believe this. What traits do you personally consider to be the opposite of toxic masculinity? Security, feeling secure in your own gender identity and in your own identity in general. Empathy, warmth, the ability to express emotions. I don't know if these are all traits necessarily. I've considered making videos on characters, TV characters that I found to be extremely healthy forms of masculinity. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd want to see. What's your opinion on having to look professional for your career? Is it just an unfair construct that certain accessories or clothes are deemed unprofessional, or is there more to it? I have been thinking about this a lot. I think that professionalism, dressing professionally, is absolutely a social construct, and it's also built off of purity culture a lot. I guess I can understand that seeing some people in a more sexualized way could potentially make it difficult to maintain professionalism. However, we have to consider, why is it that skin in general is inherently sexualized, especially for women? Because I've talked about this with some of you in the comments before, but nudity is not the same as sexualization, and certainly the same applies to how you dress by showing a little bit of skin. A skin on the shoulder is considered a dress code in many schools, and yet there's nothing sexual about it. So I do think professionalism in terms of how people look in general needs to be reconstructed because of the sexualization issue, because of also, people that have piercings or tattoos or things like that don't inherently mean you're good or bad at your job. So I do think we need to reconsider and reframe the way we think about these things. Why is sexual abuse by family members so common in some countries? That's a big question, but I would assume part of it has to do with authority figures and how much power they have over the people in the family who have less power. So I feel like that could definitely play a role. Does creating YouTube content help you academically? I'm guessing it helps in solidifying memory as you prepare for it and teach us, the viewers. Also, how do you juggle between academic work and YouTube creating and editing work? It must require a lot of time. Yeah, absolutely. It does help me consolidate memory, although I will say my memory is so bad that I don't really remember what I said in videos more than like a month or two ago. It really takes rehashing it for me and seeing it in writing to remember these things, but in the short term, absolutely helps me consolidate information. How do I juggle academic work and YouTube? Honestly, YouTube is the least of my worries. I know there are certain YouTubers out there who claim that it's incredibly difficult and look at how much time you spend on it. I would say I spend like a maximum of 8 hours per week. Definitely takes time, but it's not that long. If it's full time, it's really not that much, and I put out a lot of videos. So honestly, I get the YouTube out of the way. It's almost like a breath of fresh air for me, because the academic work, that's the real hard stuff, and the practicum, so the clinical work. I don't have a question, just wanted to say thank you for all your work. You're always educating me, and I'll be grateful for that. Thank you so much, that's so sweet. How has becoming a YouTuber impacted your relationship? I don't know, I think he helps me more. Like I need help sometimes with editing, with thumbnails. He's definitely very supportive of that, so I guess it's deepened my feeling supported. Other than that, nothing too crazy, hasn't really changed it. Where did the interest for your current field of expertise come from? I just want to know about people, how they think, why they think certain things, what they think. What's the job market like with an undergrad in psychology, and how does it feel to be so far along in your studies? Undergrad in psychology doesn't really open any possibilities. You could be like a secretary at a company, nothing wrong with that, but it's not necessarily putting your degree to use. I guess because there is so much more to learn in psychology that you kind of need a grad school degree. How does it feel to be so far along in your studies? That felt so good to read, because sometimes I feel like I'm still just starting out, but I guess it is true that in a year and a half, knock on wood, I'll be a doctor in psychology. So that feels really good. I've been waiting a really long time to be financially independent, so I am definitely looking forward to that. And also to just being able to not have so many things to juggle, to just have work and then personal life instead of like practicum, school, TAing, this YouTube channel, all these different things. I feel like I'm really discombobulated right now, so I'm definitely looking forward to only having a couple things on my plate. Tips and tricks on how to take care of our mental health or mental hygiene in the age of competition, hustle culture, social media, stressful works or classes, busy schedule, toxic people, etc. So I would look at my mental health hygiene video and also my how to stay motivated video. I hope those will answer your question. And it looks like those are all of the questions. So thank you everyone for asking your questions. Let me know if there's anything else, maybe down in the comments below, and I can cover it in a future Q&A. I hope you have a great week, and if you're not subscribed and this is your type of channel, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you soon.